Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi. Jaya Vrinda, Jaya Vrinda, Jaya Vrinda, Jaya Sri Vrinda. Vrindaya Dosadevya Priyaya Kesavachacha
Tosidevyae Priyaye Keshavashacha Vishnuvati Pradedeve Sajavachaye Namo Namaka. Jai Tulsi Maharani. We offer our most respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desire trees, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Jai Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, today is the disappearance day of Lokanath Goswami.
Is it just Lokanath today, or
Is it? Well, let's see. Let's see how far I get. I mean, it's up there in case I need to do the verse. Just in case. All right. So we are going to chant the prayers to the departed Vaishnavas before class. If I can get my, oh, there the glasses are. Janilo Premadana Karuna Pracho Janilo Premadana Karuna Pracho Heno Prabhu Jagela Yataku Gela Kahamura Saruprupa Kahasanatagan Kahamura Saruprupa Kahasanatagan Kakata Saraguna Pavatita Pavan Kahamura Bata Yuga Kahagaviras Kahamura Bata Yuga Kahaviras Ekakale Gotagela Goranaturas Pashane Kutivo Mata Anatle Pashibo Pashane Kutivo Mata Anale Pashibo Goranga Gunera Nere Gotagele Papo Say Sabas Sangira Sange Ye Koilo Vilas Say Sabas Sangira Sange Ye Koilo Vilas Say Sangana Paya Kande Narotamatas Say Sangana Paya Kande Narotamatas Jayanira Prema Dana Karuna Pracho Jayanira Prema Dana Karuna Pracho Hey no Prabhu Kotakela Acharya Thakur Acharya Thakur Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paramahansa all through Teta Jatashi Shimad, His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charananda Bhaktivedanta Goswami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shilahvila Stakuri ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhaktavan ki jai. Shri Shri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopitan Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavanam ki jai, Mathuram ki jai, Jagadasami ki jai, Yamunamai ki jai, Shimani Lasidevi ki jai, Samai Veda Bhakta Vrind ki jai, Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Chinamani. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pacharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatani. I'm going to read from this poem written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, which Srila Prabhupada we said we should chant on these days when we're commemorating the Disappearance Day or Days of Great Vaishnavas. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasacharya God? Where my Swarup Damodar Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the Savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? Where is Krishnadas Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees, in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So today we are commemorating the disappearance day of Lokanath Goswami. There's not a lot of information on Lokanath Goswami, so in order to give this class, there's some reference to the Bhakti Ratnakara and the Prema Vilas. So these are later biographies that were written about the great devotees, especially, Narottama Das Thakur, Shaimananda. Actually, I forgot to go. Om Gana Timiranda Shagananjana Shakya Chakshur Viditam Yena Tasmai Sigurve Namaha. And Srinivas Acharya. So these particular books are really nectarian. I've read the Bhakti Ratnakara. Beautiful book. And it also talks about the whole Brajmandal Parikraman there, which is really beautiful. So Lokanath Goswami, although he is not known as well as the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, he epitomized the quality of humility. With the other Goswamis of Vrindavan, you have, of course, Rupa Goswami, who is, our Acharya. You have Sanatana Goswami, who taught about, actually the whole philosophy, Sambandha, Rupa Goswami, Abhideya. We understand that. And Raghunath Das Goswami, Prayojana. But Lokanath Goswami specifically, deliberately concealed his greatness out of his humility. Not to say the other ones weren't humble. I mean, don't get that from this particular discussion. But he was just was overwhelmed with humility. Of course, the other Goswamis were just as humble, but they had a mission to accomplish for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We'll talk about Lokanath Goswami's mission. There's no real literary achievement or public teaching or anything like that, but he was absorbed in Krishna Nam and absorbed in the holy places in Vrindavan, which we'll talk about in a second. And he was absorbed in this deity named Radha Vinod. So, and he was a personification of Manina, Manadena. Not expecting any respect. In fact, rejecting respect. And we see sometimes great Vaishnavas, they may do this. I mean, they may act like they're stupid. I mean, just like Jada Bharat, to avoid any, because respect, when you get respect, guess what happens? Anarthas develop. Not necessarily if you're a great devotee, but if you're not a great devotee, when you get respect, people pay attention to you, you're world famous, then you begin to believe those things. And actually, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur talks about this as one of the causes of anarthas, the respect that someone gets, a great devotee gets. So it's very, very important to guard against this. So, in other words, Churnadapi Sunichena Thurori Vasahishna Manina Manadena Kirtaniya Siddhari. He was always serving the other Goswamis of Vrindavan. Amazing person. So, as far as his early life is concerned, he was born or appeared around the end of the 15th century. I don't have the exact date. And he appeared in Bangladesh. What we know is Bangladesh today, but, it's East Bengal at that particular time. And he was born in a Brahmin family. You can tell that because his father's name was Padmanabha Chakravarti. And he was completely disinterested in all worldly affairs, even from his childhood. But he had a deep attraction, this is a sign, for hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam chanting, and he was very much into solitude, just staying away from everybody. And he was never, Anyway, he was never attracted to debate. Even though he was quite intelligent, he never debated with anybody about anything, just so humble. So, he first met Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu after Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took initiation from Ishwara Puri in Gaya. And at that particular point, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was exhibiting the symptoms of love of God. And before that, Lord Chaitanya was exhibiting the symptoms of a proud scholar. Especially a scholar engaged in Vitanda. before he actually, before he took initiation, just defeating people, defeat. So, not Vada. So he went to see Lord Chaitanya. He heard about Lord Chaitanya. Immediately he recognized him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he wanted to stay with Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu understood that Lokanath Goswami had a mission, first of all. And secondly, Lokanath could not bear to see Lord Chaitanya as a sannyasi. He never saw Lord Chaitanya as a sannyasi. What happened is that Lord Chaitanya said, okay, leave and go to Vrindavan. Now, that's a really intense, hard instruction to follow. It's like when Prabhupada sent devotees away. I remember there's a story with Hari Kesh that Prabhupada sent him to, Russia and those other countries like Eastern Europe. And he was crying. And Prabhupada said, you're simply sitting here rotting, typing. Of course, typing for Prabhupada is not rotting. But Prabhupada sent him away, and then he came back very successfully and developed the mission in Eastern Europe. And Prabhupada said, yes, at that point Prabhupada said, you were simply sitting here rotting. And then when he came back and saw Prabhupada, he was crying. It's a very wonderful story about Hari Kesha's devotion to His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. So Lokanath Goswami, he was very devoted to Lord Chaitanya. And here's God. You're with God, and God sends you away. Can you imagine the scenario? You're with God, and God says, okay, goodbye, go to Vrindavan, where I was in my past incarnation. So he went immediately to Vrindavan before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took sannyas, and he was given the mission by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to find out the holy places in Vrindavan, because at that particular time, Vrindavan basically was almost completely isolated. It wasn't like nowadays you go, it's like Delhi, like the city of Vrindavan is like Delhi, or even Govardhan. You know, Govardhan now, especially this Guru Purnima, you can't even move on Guru Purnima. There's so many people there. So, but at that time, it just, yeah, there were a few villagers who knew about things, but basically, it was unknown. So, Lokanath Goswami received this instruction before Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami got that instruction and arrived in Vrindavan. Because Rupa and Sanatana Goswami didn't meet Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu until after he took sannyas. Remember the history there. So, Lord Chaitanya met all these different devotees who joined the 6 Goswamis after he took sannyas. So Lokanath went earlier. Of course, Lokanath Goswami also had an inseparable friend. His name was Bhugarbha Goswami. So it's described, they were like, well, it's two friends, whatever you say, 2 peas in a pod or something like that. But they were inseparable, like the same person, with just different bodies. That's how close they were. And also in the Bhakti Ratnakara, you actually see descriptions of really deep, loving relationships between devotees. That's one reason why I like the Bhakti Ratnakara, because it shows, in one sense, more than the Bhagavatam does. Not that the Bhagavatam is wrong, but it's a different angle, how the devotees have these inseparable relationships, like Ramchandra Chakravarti and Narottam Das Thakur. The story is Narottam Das Thakur told Ramchandra Chakravarti, who was actually, etiquette-wise, he was a disciple of one of Narottam's friends, Srinivasacharya, but they were like this, and he told him to go away and be with your wife. His wife, not your wife. And but he said, your wife. So, but he just couldn't do it. He just got like a few meters away, and he started hitting himself, feeling so guilty he couldn't follow the instructions. So then Narottama came back, and then on Narottama Das Thakur left this world feeling separation from Srinivasacharya and Ramchandra Chakravarti. So this is the theme you find throughout the Bhakti Ratnakara. I advise the devotees to read that book. So he was the first member of Lord Chaitanya, that is Lokanath Goswami, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's entourage to actually explore and restore the holy Dham. So he went to Vrindavan. The journey actually took months and months on feet, and he visited Prayag, Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura on the way. But when he entered Vrindavan, like I mentioned before, he found nothing. It was a dense jungle. I mean, even at the time of Raghunath Das Goswami, there were tigers. The story how he was protected from the tigers by Krsna. There were just tigers roaming freely around Vrindavan. You don't find tigers now, you just find pandas roaming freely. I'm not talking about panda bears. That's Chinese. There were abandoned villages. People had lived there before. Almost no temples. And he had no shelter. Now, where are you going to live? when there's no temples, no abandoned villages, there's no agriculture either. So basically, he had to live from whatever was growing on the trees. Isn't it? I mean, if there's no agriculture, I mean, there were a few villagers he could beg from, and sometimes he would live inside caves. I mean, really dedicated to serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I mean, just basically him and Bhugarba Goswami, and that was it. It's one thing if you were there during the 6 Goswamis in Vrindavan. I wasn't. I know I wasn't. But if you were there during the 6, you had plenty of association. I almost often lament, why wasn't I there in Vrindavan when the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan were there? So he kept searching for Lord Chaitanya, Lord Krishna's pastimes, and he was guided by scripture. He meditated, and also asked whoever was there about local tradition. But he also verified local tradition through Shastra. Like we find Bhaktivinoda Thakur did this when he was attempting, and he did find, the appearance place of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He'd looked at historical records, he read Shastra, and then he came to the conclusion that the present-day Navadvip was not the place where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. So Lokanath Goswami utilized all this because he was intelligent. He was a scholar. But he didn't demonstrate that to people. So years later, the 6 Goswamis, the other Goswamis came, particularly Rupa and Sanatan, and together they restored all these places. He was there the whole time, like Govardhan, Radhakund, Shambhakund, Nandagram, Barshana, and Gokul, and other places too. Without his efforts, we would not know where these places are. Of course, at the same time, we have to be careful that when there is some village talk, not just to accept that as a bona fide place. Sometimes there's so many of these descriptions, it's just like, Krishna did this here, Krishna did, how do you know? It doesn't say in Shastra. So you take that with a grain of salt. Really, I mean, and there's so many stories, just like yesterday, I saw a video, which is, based on another story of why Krishna got shot in the foot, when he left. He saw that. And it was because he killed Bali. But that's not what the Bhagavatam says. That's not what our acharyas say. Our acharyas say, Krishna that was Brigamuni who took the part of the hunter, not Bali. So you got to be really careful what you talk about, whether it's actually from the acharyas and from Shastra. So anyway, he was, as I mentioned before, he was extremely renounced, more austere than basically anyone else, except for maybe Raghunath Das Goswami. He only owned a kopina, one cloth, a water pot, and a bead bag. That was it. And as he described, he stayed underneath a different tree every night, refused comfort when it was offered to him, and he begged only to maintain his life. So I mentioned his deity, that the central treasure of his life was the deity of Radha Vinod. And Krishna revealed, the tradition is sort of that Krishna revealed the deity to him while he was in Vrindavan. He appeared to Lokanath Goswami while he was in Vrindavan. And from that day onwards, he worshipped Radha Vinod with great devotion. And he carried Radha Vinod in a cloth bag hanging from his neck. Can you imagine that? Carrying deities around your neck. So he did cook for them, he bathed them, he decorated them, and he sang for them every day. He had bhajans for them. And it's interesting, he would sleep with the deity on his heart. I mean, it's sort of similar to the way Lord Chaitanya had Giriraj, isn't it? Lord Chaitanya would hold it and he would bathe the deity with his tears. I wouldn't do that with my Giriraj because my tears are muchi. But you can see how intense his love was for the deity. And so these deities are now in Jaipur, where you can see them, where other Vrindavan deities were moved to Jaipur during the time of the Mughal invasion to protect them. So when the other Goswamis came, he associated with them, and he was the senior associate. And they actually held him in high regard. Now, the interesting story of him and his one disciple is because of his great humility, he had taken a vow never to give initiation. That's amazing. And so throughout his life, he was just vowing like that. Many devotees begged him for initiation. Please, Guru Maharaj, give initiation. No, I've taken a vow never to give initiation. Because he was afraid of prestige, followers, and, being an institutional guru. Like some of us in this room. So, Nadanam Najanam Sundarim Kavitam Ba Jagadish. Can you imagine, like, Krishna sends you followers, people who just say, oh, Guru Maharaj, you have lotus feet, and Dhanam, that's Janam, and, people give you a donation just for taking prasadam in their house. I mean, everyone else, if you go to a restaurant, you have to pay. But if you're a guru, you go out to eat, and you get money for eating. It's true. I'm not just making this up. And then not only do you get money for eating, there's so many ladies come to you and say, just like I was talking to one lady the other day, she says, oh, she's crying when she saw me. Probably crying out of pity, but that's a different story. So, Nanam, Danam, Janam, Sundari, he didn't want any of that. No honor. And for decades, no one could persuade him. So finally, there was a young devotee named Narottam Das Thakur who arrived in Vrindavan. And Narottam was supposed to be Lokanath's disciple. And again, Lokanath Goswami refused. So Narottam was determined. Just like you see in the case of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he was determined. Because even in the case of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Gorkashodas Babaji Maharaj, Gorkashodas Babaji Maharaj said, Lord Chaitanya said no. That's even a heavier argument, go to Guru Maharaj. Well, I forgot to ask Lord Chaitanya. Well, I did ask Lord Chaitanya the second time, and he said no. So what can you say to your guru if Lord Chaitanya says no to him? But he was determined, Narottam was very determined, the same as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And instead, he decided, let me just serve my Guru Maharaj. And so, late at night, after Lokanath Goswami retired, Narottam Das Thakur quietly cleaned the place where Lokanath Goswami had answered nature's calls. And this is considered a very low class of service. Like in India, look at the cultural aspect to it. There are these people called bungis in India. And nobody wants to go, the Bungi colony, they're not even allowed in the temple, even though they're devotees. They go through the streets of Govardhan, I'm sure Vrindavan too, but I know Govardhan better. And they're just going into these trenches that are on the side of the road where all the stool water is flowing, on cleaning it. And for those of us who go around Prikma, we see where it isn't. We just go to the opposite side of the street. And then they're putting it into a wheelbarrow or a truck or something like that and carrying it away. Shoo. And so he was doing this service, humble service to the Guru. This is actually very important. How one should serve the Guru, samit pani shrotriyam brahmanishtam, as described, tadviganartam sagurumeva bigachet, fetching, and even Krishna was, well, not cleaning like that, but he was actually fetching firewood and water for his Guru, like that. So, anyway, he was doing this for a whole year. It's not that he was doing this like for one day and ew, like that. Also, we find that, what was that? Oh, Ishwara Puri was serving his spiritual master, Madhavendra Puri, in the same way, isn't it? And also we find that devotees like Abhiram Thakur, Abhiram, our god brother, and Tamal Krsna Maharaj and Bhakti Chur Maharaj were serving Prabhupada in that way. Like Prabhupada said to Tamal Krsna Maharaj, oh, it's simply, I forget the exact words, simply disgusting. And Tamal Krsna Maharaj said, no, Prabhupada, don't talk like that. You know, they were deriving great pleasure in serving Srila Prabhupada, like that. So, so after a while, Lokanath Goswami, because Narottam never told anybody about it, Lokanath Goswami was looking, and he thought, you know, who's cleaning this? And so I guess he stayed awake a little late that night and was looking out to see what was happening. And there was Narottam. And then he was extremely moved by this. And of course, there's some stories say he got Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction to initiate Narottama Das Thakur, and he accepted Narottama Das Thakur as his only initiated disciple. And this is actually one of the most celebrated disciple-guru relationships in Vaishnava history. And Narottam, of course, became one of the main leaders who, second generation from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spread Krishna consciousness in Bengal outside of the Braj area. So, just to summarize, Lokanath Goswami's teachings were humility, constant chanting, attachment to Vrindavan, worship of the deity, attached to Radha Vinod, as mentioned, avoiding prestige, serving the devotees, and simplicity. And as far as descriptions of his personality, he's depicted as grave, gentle, compassionate, detached, soft-spoken, absorbed in Nam, uninterested in recognition. I know some of these are repetitive descriptions. And so the final years, whoops, I got a lot of notes here. He served Radha Vinod, and even when pilgrims came, they rarely heard him speak. He was engaged in Leela Smarana continually, and entered into his eternal pastimes. His samadhi is still there. It's a place of pilgrimage. Just to reiterate, he's one among the first devotees sent by Lord Chaitanya, recovered many of sacred pastime places, great humility, worship Radha Vinod, guru of Narottama Das Thakur, and set a perfect example of humility. Let's see. Anyway, that's what I have to say about Lokanath Goswami. Any questions or comments?
Well, in regard to village stories,
Yeah.
now we have the AI videos coming out, and many of them may be
Yes.
start, not devotees, I mean, some of these things are very interesting to watch,
Yeah.
but they're not really agreeing with our philosophy or even showing pure devotional service. It's kind of telling, they don't come across like legends almost.
Yeah, and when people see them, because it doesn't have the potency of something that's true, then it can get people to think, yeah, they're simply stories, mythology, like that. So, I watch them from time to time, just to see whether, like the one I mentioned before that was, anyway, because it had Hanuman in it and Sugriva, so.
Very well done.
Yeah, it's very well done. I thought it was quite well done. But because I know the Shastra, I examine it and I critique it in my mind, at least. So I think it's very important for us to understand. First of all, the Bhagavatam is the ultimate evidence. That's a pramana, ultimate pramana. And even if there's some difference between other scriptures, we accept the Bhagavatam's version, just like you have the Mahabharata, and you have so many stories in the Mahabharata, and the Bhagavatam may differ in many respects. So, because the Bhagavatam actually has been passed down in disciplic succession, whereas the Mahabharata, not in unbroken disciplic succession. And then also you have other books, oh my God, I guess I should get into this, like there's this whole discussion about the Manusmriti in a conference that I'm a member of. And it was an interesting point that Ridananda Maharaj made, because we brought him into the conference to give some spice to it. So, because we had some other people, I can mention his name, I'm not going to mention the opposing people's names. The other people who were saying, though, in the Manusmriti it says this about women, Manusmriti it says that, and this, whatever. And so, and you have to accept the Manusmriti, and Ridananda Maharaj says, okay. It also says in the Manusmriti that if your wife is unfaithful, you throw her to the dogs, and have them, the dogs, tear her limbs off and eat her alive. Of course, I don't know if she'd still be alive when the limbs come off. But anyway, that's an injunction. In the if you're going to accept, you can't just like pick the parts of the Manusmriti you want to pick. And also the Manusmriti has not been passed down to cyclic succession. I know Prabhupada said at one point it's the law book for mankind, but we don't have the Manusmriti in its original form. And also injunctions are time, place, and manner applicable. So you have to be very careful when you hear these things. Therefore, we stick with our Srimad Bhagavatam, our acharyas, and books that have been translated by the acharyas. Yeah.
So the problem that I keep having is not with AI, but with real people, and often people who are very respected, and
Yeah.
leadership, and, they'll say things, either philosophical points or stories, and if I say, oh, wow, what a wonderful story, I'd like to read more about it, where is it from?
And then you say, I don't know.
And then they say, oh, I heard it from this villager, I heard it from this person, I'll check up on it for you, and then they never do, and I'll even remind them, oh, did you get a chance to check on that? And then just silence. And this is happening more and more and more and more and more.
Yes,
It's become pervasive.
it's pervasive in ISKCON. And even, I referred to the Bhakti Ratnakara, but also Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that there's it's not completely accurate. There's many, not accurate, but the bhav is correct in the Bhakti Ratnakara. But so it's not all the details. But he said he advised his disciples to read it for the bhav and the Siddhanta, but not for the details. Because the person who was the author, Narahari Chakravarti, he was a pure devotee.
But Raj, what do we do practically as members of ISKCON when we have this
what do we do? We accept it with a grain of salt. I mean, we can't fight against this tendency. It's almost impossible to fight against it. I mean, just like when I go to Vrindavan, I go to Govardhan, then really the only thing we know for certain is that that's Govardhan. And that's the Jamuna, but the Jamuna is not there anyway. I mean, there's even discussion, where is Gokul? Is it actually, there's actually discussion like that. Is that the original Gokul? I mean, we know the city of Vrindavan because the Goswami temples were established there. We know that is bona fide. We know Govardhan Hill is bona fide. And probably Barshana and Nanagan too. But everywhere else, is that the actual Vrindakund? Maybe. So it's questionable. It's questionable. So, yeah, I mean, but we know Krishna is there in his holy name. We know Prabhupada is a pure devotee. We know the Bhagavatam is perfect. I mean, I think that's enough for me. And other things, you take with a grain of salt. I mean, even when I'm taking people around Govardhan, I can't say 100% sure that's a true story. I just can't, that would be dishonest of me to say it. I mean, I know that's Govardhan, and that's the tale of Govardhan, and I know that's Radhakund and Shyamakund, because Lord Chaitanya found it. It's in the recent time. But I don't know for sure that's where Krishna, let's say the jewels throne,
Do we know if on the village is actually the place,
Well, we know because Madhavendra Puri did his program there. Madhavendra Puri, did the that's why it's called Anior, because give me more. That's when he did his offering to Govardhan. And we know where he established Govardhan, top of Govardhan Hill, because that's more recent. But it's something that didn't happen by a pure devotee recently. We don't know for sure.
What do we do with certain speakers who do this? They may have wonderful performance and a nice mood, but they're doing this a lot. What do we do?
Just check the Bhav and the Siddhanta, and that's all we could do. I mean, and devotees sometimes, even pure devotees, they may write certain literatures, dramatic literatures, that maybe didn't happen to make a philosophical point, isn't it? Yeah, so that's pure devotees do that. So, but if someone who's not a pure devotee and they're writing something, there's always the chance of rasabhas or some, conflict. Saved. Anyway, it's an interesting discussion. But I just, I don't take it seriously unless it's the Shastric reference. Yeah.
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Enam Kanvandam Maravindanalayataksam Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandar Akom Vidamaniya Vishesha Shobha Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasa Sakalen Kriya Priti Manti Vasyanti Panti Kayanti Giram Naganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadhu Jala Vigrasya Govindam
Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Samani Domine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurani Bacha Visesha Shunyavadi Ashachate Satarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Nana Ramanityananda Shiraita Sivasari Nalakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ramanityananda Shiraita Radha Sivasari Gaurvata Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Guru Lokanath, Guru Lokanath, Radhe. Jaya Guru Lokanath, Radhe. Jaya Radhe, 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 Jaya Radhe. Jaya Radhe, 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 Jaya Radhe. Shri Radhe, Jai Om. Paramahamsa, Jaya Om.
glory is the assembled devotee. All glory is to Shri Guru and Yoga Master Prabhupada.
Just a quick reminder that we will have Harinam Sankirtan on Sunday morning, 11:30 to 1 at Weaver Street Market. So please come. It's be a nice day, no rain, and it's always good to give the holy name to everyone in our town. Hare Krishna. Chaito Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nirvapanam Shreya Kairavya Chandrika Vitarnam Vidyavadu Jivanam. Haribo. Thank you so much. Kinam Pranamrita Swadanam Sarvatma Snapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tadrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kala Etadrishi. Bhavatat Bhaktir Hoitaki Twai Ainanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitamam Vishameva Vambuda Gripayata Vapada Pankaja Stita Duli Sajashim Vachintaya Nayanam Gadashu Daraya Varanam Gadgadarudaya Gira Pulakarnishitam Vapukada Tavanama Grahaneva Vishyati Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunayatam Jagat Sarvam Govindam Virahename Ashlishava Padamritam Anastumam Adarshanam Marmahatakarotuva Yatatava Vidadatu Lampato Mat Prananatastusa Evanapara. Victory to the Sri Kirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of